Since the industry is highlighting narrative in games more than ever, plot holes have become more apparent. If developers are making the 10th entry in a franchise, they can't be expected to know every single little thing that happened in every previous title. In situations like this, it's not uncommon for the narrative to contradict elements from an earlier game. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here at Obvious Video Game Plot Holes No One Talks About. Number 8. ELENA'S teleporting skills, Uncharted Drake's fortune, and Uncharted 4. In the Uncharted series, Nathan Drake is regularly assisted by journalist and TV personality Elena Fisher. Although she hopes to join Nathan in his first treasure hunt, Sully convinces Nathan to abandon Elena in Panama, giving her no indication where they're going next. But not only does Elena figure out Nathan is headed to the Amazon, she finds him despite the fact the rainforest is over 2 million square miles. By comparison, that's 3 times bigger than Texas and 20 times the size of the UK. You could forgive this leap of logic if it was a one-time thing, but she does it again in Uncharted 4. While Nathan finds himself stranded in Madagascar, Elena manages to find him simply by following gunfire. In Elena's defense, she is such an outstanding journalist, it's possible she could have figured out Nathan was headed to Madagascar. And since she knows Nathan so well by this point and has a knack for adventuring herself, she would have some idea which regions he'd be looking for treasure. But since Madagascar is the world's 4th largest island, the chances of being in the same neck of the woods as Nate are practically zero. Number 7. Big Daddy's prototype is better than the official one, BIOSHOCK 2. BIOSHOCK wasn't just a great game, but a work of art. 2K Games' masterful title had an Ayn Rand-inspired storyline filled with provocative characters, a relentlessly tense atmosphere, and breathtaking gameplay. Even though many elements like the little sister and the "would you kindly" mantra have now been immortalized in the gaming industry, one factor that grabbed everyone's attention was the Big Daddy. This hulking brute was an instant hit with fans, inspiring the developers to make BD the main character in the sequel. Unfortunately, a Big Daddy isn't really protagonist material since they're too big to fit through a doorway and have the agility of a dead tortoise. To get around this, the team behind BIOSHOCK 2 had the story revolve around a prototype Big Daddy, who's smaller, faster, and more agile. Even though the official Daddy could only attack with its drill arm, this chap is capable of using a large variety of weapons and plasmids. Which begs the question, why isn't the prototype the official Big Daddy? It's better in every way, so why did his designer Dr. Yi Suchong make the final version bulkier, slower, and less efficient? Number 6. How is Ada alive? Resident Evil 2. In Resident Evil 2, Leon S. Kennedy finds himself in the middle of a zombie infestation on his first day as a cop. While trying to escape the city, he bumps into a mysterious woman called Ada Wong. Despite evading his questions and repeatedly disappearing with little notice, Leon sees her as an ally. But in the climax, Ada reveals she used Leon to locate the zombie G-virus. But during this revelation, Ada is shot by a third party, causing her to fall down a shaft. This sequence is more heartbreaking if you play it in the B mission, since Ada admits she loves Leon before drawing her final breath. However, this emotional scene is ruined since Ada appears later without explanation to help Leon against the penultimate boss. When Leon runs into Ada again during the events in Resi 4, he's shocked to see her. However, the only reason he's surprised is because she's working with the nefarious virologist Wesker. Really, Leon? That's what shocks you? Not the whole her being alive at all part? Number 5. Rak ghouls can't infect you. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. While exploring the slums in greatest RPG of all time, Knights of the Old Republic, you'll be warned by the locals that the area is infested with mutants called rak ghouls. If anyone gets bitten or scratched by these abominations, they will transform into a rak ghoul within hours. Unless an infected can get their hands on an extremely rare antidote, there's nothing that can stop them mutating into these ghoulish creatures. At least that's what you're told. In battle, you're guaranteed to be swiped at by the rak ghouls on a number of occasions. Even though rak ghouls are pretty hard to kill, especially when they come at you in large numbers, it's impossible for your character to get infected by these little buggers. At first, you might think you're immune to the disease because you're a force wielder, but since your allies are also resistant to the infection despite not being attuned with the force, this theory doesn't hold water. Annoyingly, this inconsistency could have been cleared up if it was explained that some people have an immunity to the disease. But since nothing like this is mentioned, we're left with a blatant plot hole. Number 4. Samus keeps killing the last METROID. METROID series. In METROID, galactic bounty hunter Samus Aran travels the galaxy to destroy the space pirates that murdered her parents. These creatures intend to create a biological weapon using the DNA of a METROID parasite. In Super Metroid, the last METROID in existence sacrifices its life to save Samus from the monstrous Mother Brain. Although the METROID sacrifice served a great cause, its actions led directly to the species' extinction. Except it totally didn't. In sequel Metroid Other M, it turns out the Metroids are still around because reasons. Later in the conclusion, Samus destroys the Metroid station, rendering them extinct. Again. But in Metroid Fusion, the sneaky parasites reveal they're still alive! Despite blowing them up in the climax for the 3rd time, it's revealed in Metroid Dread that, once again, they're not dead. Since Samus's life was saved with Metroid DNA in the past, she is technically considered a Metroid, meaning the creatures can never truly die while she lives. Even though Samus killed the last Metroid a number of times, it's safe to assume these critters will keep popping up in future installments. Number 3. Supernova is the meteor Sephiroth needs. Final Fantasy VII. In Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth is driven insane after learning he was created from extraterrestrial DNA for a genetic experiment. Consumed with rage, he summons a meteor that will collide into Earth in a matter of days, killing everyone. But during the final battle, Sephiroth's plan seems a bit nonsensical once he performs his most iconic attack, Supernova. This magical spell calls upon a meteor to enter the solar system, obliterating Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter before causing the sun to explode because why not? The blast engulfs Mercury and Venus before devastating Earth, leaving your party with a fraction of health. But if Sephiroth can conjure this spell anytime he wants, why is he stuck conjuring a far slower and weaker meteor to destroy Earth? Of all the possible attacks Sephiroth could have had, why did the developers give him one that contradicts the entire plot? It's also odd how this enchantment can't kill your party, despite the fact that it destroys a chunk of the Milky Way galaxy. Supernova may be epic and cinematic, but it doesn't make a lick of sense. Number 2. Unemployment is a serious problem, supposedly. Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human takes place in a future where androids have become commonplace. Being easy and cheap to manufacture, it isn't long before the workplace mostly consists of these lifelike robots. This inevitably leads to a serious social gap, causing unemployment in Michigan to skyrocket, with humans growing resentful and an android uprising looming. Society looks like it's ready to tear itself apart as a result. Even though Detroit has a fascinating premise, there's one crucial element in the plot that doesn't sit right. The story emphasizes how the dependency on androids has caused the city to experience an astounding 35% unemployment. But if you weren't told this, the player wouldn't notice over a third of the population is out of a job. Even though the Great Depression was the worst financial period in US history, unemployment was never higher than 25%. If Detroit's unemployment was 35% and eventually increases to 40%, the city should be in absolute chaos. You do see a few protesters and homeless people throughout the streets, but nothing to suggest the city was on the verge of economical collapse. Number 1. Why doesn't KRONIKA time travel to kill her enemies? Mortal Kombat 11. In Mortal Kombat, the God of Thunder Raiden has spent centuries safeguarding Earthrealm from hostile universes by taking part in a multiverse fighting tournament. But in MK11, Raiden learns all of his actions have been manipulated by the time-weaving titan KRONIKA. Not only has KRONIKA masterminded the tournament for eons, she intends to restart all of reality when the current Mortal Kombat concludes. Fortunately, heroes from multiple realms and timelines come together to stop KRONIKA from undoing reality, defeating her once and for all. However, it doesn't seem feasible for KRONIKA to be defeated, since she's basically a walking time machine. On a number of occasions, she showcases her ability to stop time. So why doesn't she reverse time when her enemies disrupt her plans? Why doesn't she go back in time and kill the combatants when they were babies? At one point, she uses her chronological powers to freeze Earthrealm's champions in place. Instead of killing everyone then and there though, she instead uses this opportunity to taunt Raiden. Annoyingly, this is merely one of thousands of examples where KRONIKA could have effortlessly eliminated her enemies, but chose not to. That That's the end of our list, but do let me know down in that comment section if you can think of any other obvious video game plot holes no one talks about. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more gaming goodness.